And we are working on our brand new computer, thanks to UMBS and everybody. So now we have a much more efficient working system. And it looks really good here in the room. And so I hope it sounds really good for you guys. Let us know if you've got any um, sound issues. And Hannah, do you want to announce, introduce? I'm sorry, that's the wrong word.
Oh, yay. I'm so excited. Yes. Hi.
I'm getting
Oh,
everybody spotlighted here. Here we go.
right. Give me just a second.
And there we
So
go.
I'm really excited to be able to introduce my dear friend Julia to you guys today. Julia and I actually met a million years ago in Pittsburgh when I was teaching. I think she took my color theory class, and um, and then she took a couple other at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. I was teaching there, and it was ridiculous because she's a much better painter than I'll ever be. And so since she has this wonderful sense of color and design, I asked her to come speak for us today. And so I'd like to introduce to you a new member of our Bead Society. She writes, My obsession with beads and colors all started with the stackable donut toy in kindergarten, and it hasn't slowed down since. I've long had the love of beads and bead weaving, and in my other art studies learned about color theory and how color works both scientifically and emotionally. She's mixed a lot of pattern, color, and sculpture in her beadwork, and she creates more three-dimensional wearables that invite play. Currently, she's a graphic designer by day, and her free time is spent making things and trying not to buy more beads. And hopefully, we'll see her cute puppy sometime during today's uh, presentation. So, Julia, I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you, Hannah. Yeah, and you were a really fun teacher, by the way.
I loved having you in class. She was wonderful, but it's ridiculous how wonderful her paintings are.
Oh, thank you. But anyway, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just like all verklempt now. But no, seriously, yeah, I mean that was like well over, oh, I shouldn't say how many years ago. But I've been in New Jersey long enough to be a Jersey girl now. Let's just put it that way.
Right? Mhm.
But let me go ahead and share my screen. Uh, there it is. So we can see what I've got for you. And so to start with talking about color, the most important thing I want to tell you right from the beginning is there are no rules when it comes to color, but there's a lot of guidelines. And a lot of the guidelines that I think we've been taught haven't really been working for a lot of us. So I've I'm always looking at new systems and studying the way people organize color and how they use color. And with my background in graphics, I also used to do pre-press, so I would have to make sure that somebody's color came out okay on the other end. And so there's a lot that goes into color separation and that sort of thing. So I'm always looking at different ways of managing it, of designing with it, or getting it to work. Um, and I think all of you are pretty much familiar with the traditional color wheel. You know, you have your red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. But I've always found this pretty frustrating. And when I learned how print is made, what I learned about was RGB CMYK. Now, the K is black only because when you go to print, you know, cyan, magenta, and yellow inks, they just make a really deep gray. So that black is just tacked on there to make it look better. Um, but what's interesting about this system that I found that I'm going to share with you tonight is this designer, her name is Tracy Holmes, has taken the RGB and CMY color systems and really merged them together in a super logical way but also opened up the things like, I'm sure you've heard the word complementary color or things like that. And I found that her system gives you much better results. Like most of us know, like blue and orange are complementary colors, or red and green are complementary colors. Purple, yellow, these are supposed to be complementary colors. But if you've ever really worked with those complements, they don't seem to work. And when I started playing with Tracy's system, which is called Breakthrough Color, I realized why it doesn't work. So we all think purple and yellow are supposed to be opposites. It's actually purple and lime green. And if you think about it, that makes so much more sense. Um, so what she's done is, instead of like having our three primaries and three, you know, oh, what was the next one? I always forget the word. Oh, secondaries. She actually has 6 primary colors, and she's turned it into a cube that tells you how these colors relate to each other. Um, and this really changed how I look at color. So you have an entirely different set of complementaries to work with, and also you have a lot more to work with. And an interesting part of this is, and to get into the technical side with printing, in order to get CMYK, you use filters of RGB, red, green, and blue. So if you use a blue filter, the only thing that makes it to the camera is yellow. So, and that's what actually gets onto the film. Same thing, if you want magenta, you use a green filter to get the magenta to show up on the film. And red and cyan, the same thing. But using these together, she has another little level of it, whereas yellow and magenta, those make red. Cyan and magenta, those make blue. And cyan and yellow, those make green. So even though these are all considered primaries, there's still a certain level of mixing going on. And then you get into your secondaries, your yellow, red, your green, yellow. You know, you go through the colors. And by naming it this way, instead of using, the more, like orange and green and blue and purple, if you name it, you know where it is on the wheel. So if you're using a magenta blue, you know it's in between magenta and blue. If you're using, yellow red, yeah, you would normally call it orange, but you know where it sits on her wheel. So I know that was kind of a bit of a fast dive in to the color, but I also want to show you something interesting here. If you look at your traditional complementary colors, they seem a little discordant over here. They fight a little bit. There's a lot more, vibration between them. There's just something a little off. But when you look at the complementaries over here, they're just so much more harmonious. Think about, like when you look at a violet, a flower that's a violet, if you think about the colors of it, it's very, sweet and harmonious to the eye. Um, and I was just very, very surprised by how much better these all work. Also, like pink and green, we all know pink and green looks fantastic together. I'm also, dabble in cross stitch, and like one of my favorite color combinations has always been different variations of pink and green. So, anyway, so just a quick pause there. Does anybody have any questions? Any experience with color systems?
Working with polymer clay, we create our own colors. So I'm very, I know Breakthrough Color and Maggie Maggio, yeah, I can't think of her, Maggie Maggio. When they created their book, they have to really how to understand colors in this particular system.
Mm-hmm.
But Breakthrough Color takes it to a whole nother level on other cubes and stuff like that.
Oh,
So
so you've actually seen the Breakthrough Color system?
yes.
Yes, it's like revelatory, and like I just, I still have my little cube here. Here we go.
I have our cubes and stuff like that, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, do you want to give any insight on how you feel about that, or just really quick, what
Uh,
it's done for you?
I think I mean, I definitely, by understanding, by actually playing with color and mixing the colors together, you kind of understand a little bit. My background is a little bit in art too, so you understand how things recede into the background or jump forward based on how you place the colors and whether or not they're, traditional colors or complementary colors or secondary colors, and how you play with it, because there's a lot of things you can look at, even optical illusions, almost kind of a concept. Even you think something is bigger spot or smaller spot, and it ends up being that they're both the same spot size, or just because your optics visually look at things differently. So I think playing with color, whether it's in paint or polymer clay or color penciling or whatever, you can actually get a feel for how the colors relate. So
Well, thank you for that, because actually you brought up a couple of important points, where you're talking about colors receding and colors looking more dominant than another color, or something looking bigger than another. So actually, you just introduced the next section. Part of what makes that work is, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard, hue, value, and saturation. I kind of have these out of order. Um, but I wanted to show you this concept. It still kind of like slips away from me a little bit, because there are three elements of color. So to Paulette's point, if you put, a bright orange dot on a very, gray blue background, that orange dot is just gonna blow out. But if you put that same bright orange dot on a super saturated blue, it's gonna fight the blue more, and it's not gonna stand out as much. So this is where hue, value, and saturation come in. So really simply, hue is just the color itself. Is it red? Is it orange? Is it green? So that's the color. And I'm going to show you how these three work with beads. I have samples here of different beads, different values, different saturations. And there's a fourth element to beads that we all need to take into consideration, and that is finish. You could have the exact same color glass bead, but the finish is going to push it in different directions, both in hue and value, and even in how saturated a color is. So value, to put it very simply, is how light it is to how dark it is. So these two are pretty easy. The color it is, how dark it is, and how light it is. The last one is saturation, and this is where I get lost a lot. And this is one of the harder concepts to grasp. A fully saturated color, every color kind of hits saturation at different levels. There's another system called Munsell, that it's kind of like a fan of color. So like each color has its own, you know, leaf that's in the fan, but you'll see the saturation point jumps around from color to color. Like yellow is fully saturated at a very high value. Where like yellow would be very saturated up here, red's very saturated down here. But an easier way to think of saturation is, how gray is it? Or how brown is it? So cool colors tend to gray down, warm colors tend to brown down. They tend to still stay warm, but their gray version looks brown. And I'll show you examples of that too. There's these other terms that I'm sure you've heard: tint, tone, and shade, which can get, again, very confusing. But again, through Breakthrough Color, she made it very simple. A tint is just how much white is added to a color. A tone is how much gray is added to a color. And a shade is how much black is added to a color. Now, these are all kind of relative when you're looking at your beads. And we can get into that. I can show you like examples of, this is what I would probably call a shade. This is probably what I would call a tone. That's another tricky part with color too, and Paulette had brought that up. color is very relative. So a lot of it depends on what color each color is sitting next to. That really changes how the color behaves. Um, so so this is kind of like one of the harder concepts, but these are like basically the three elements of color that tell you where to put it, how dark it is, how gray it is, and how bright it is. And I really find this is very useful when I'm putting together palettes for my beadwork, because I like to mix, some desaturated colors. I want to have a dark color and a light color wherever I can. And I tend to like one really good hint for a desaturated color is your metallics. Metallics are mostly desaturated, depending on what it is. Now, when you're talking like the galvanized bright colors, those are very saturated. But if you're talking your bronzes, your deep coppers, your gunmetal blues, those are very desaturated colors and can be used as such. Um, yeah, funny enough, like one of the neutral colors that I like to use is bright lime green. That's a neutral for me. So you can pick a different neutral depending on like what you like to base things off of. So let's move on to the next thing. Okay, so you've probably also heard of these here. Complementary colors, split complement, triadic, split analogous, quadratic. There's all kinds of these things. These are pretty much called color gamuts. And what these really mean is which one of the colors on this wheel are you actually using as your palette. Most people know complement. Split complement is really fun. You just go to your complement and then don't use that, but uses two friends on each side. Triadic is, a perfect triangle. And then you go to split analogous. That's when you bring your complement back in. So you got your complement and its two best buddies. And these party really well together. And you're gonna find I like to use split analogous a lot. And then you get into quadratic, which gives you a lot more variety. And I actually have a couple pieces that I can show you that are pretty quadratic. And then I go to town off of that. So these are some basic color relationships. You can start here, but one of the fun things to do with this is just to wander off and see what happens. So think of all of these as just starting places. Like if you're really struggling to put some colors there, this is a good place to start. But also keep in mind, like let's say you decide to use a split analogous, but you don't have this particular blue, go to this one. See what happens. Put it next to your thing. See if you've got like a really gray version of this. Maybe you have a gray that can actually play nicely in this slot. So there's going to be some fun with trying to figure out what color is my bead actually. And that's where it gets really fun. So, okay, so I just went racing through these two. Does anyone have any questions or comments on these?
Well, that's the fun part about the Toho Challenge. It started out with 5 colors in a simple, just split complement or triadic form, and now they gave it to me to play with. So that's why we've got, 12 to 17 different colors, and everybody's like, why do I need all these colors? But that's the fun thing because yes, a metallic bead in a peach will look completely different than an opaque or a color lined. And so that's when you have the three-dimensional aspect of beading makes it so much even more fun than I think graphic design because you can only get so much. The beads you can always change as well with your thread color and the light of the piece that whether you condense your beading or open your beading. So it's such a myriad of fun. That's why I love seeing what 400 people do with the Toho Challenge palette because they've mixed those same colors completely differently in all these random things, and every single design looks differently. So it looks like they use 40 different colors in the whole palette when you're done with it, just because how people have rearranged them or focused, featured, one set or another set. And so it's just super fun to see the whole collection.
Oh, that's really awesome, and especially, and you mentioned something also really interesting. I haven't even mentioned thread color yet, and I do have like an example that shows how just using a different color thread will push your bead color slightly different directions, and that's another really fun bit to play with. I had actually done a piece that was all transparent crystal rainbow beads, but I used rainbow thread in it, and it looked amazing. Just doing the peyote stitch in a flat peyote, and it just looked absolutely amazing. Of course, it fell apart because the thread was terrible, but it was still fun. So here's another fun way to use these color wheels, and this is where we're going to bring in the tint, the tone, and the shade. Um, and I'm going to leave you some of these big wheels to play with. Um, we're going to take care of uploading this PDF so everybody has access to this. So don't worry about trying to get this all into your head. You're going to have this PDF and you can play with it later. But this is where we start to really pull all three elements together. The saturation, tint, tone, and shade. And what hue you're working with. So one of the my favorites is doing, basically kind of a split complementary, but I like to shift off to the orange. So the colors that I'm using here are basically this red, the magenta blue, and then I'm moving into, what did I do? I'm like, where's all these pieces from? Okay, yeah, all right. No, actually, I did a triadic here. That's what I did. So I did the red magenta. Excuse me. I did a yellow red, and then I did the cyan green. So most people would say this is turquoise, this is orange, and this is purple. Now, all three of these, I did different mixes. So I did a tint, a tone, and a shade. So the tone came from over here, where I had gray in it, but I was actually using the fully saturated color. So this is a fully saturated magenta blue. Now this, we would almost consider it kind of a brown. And where this came out of was the shade wheel. So this would be probably about a 30% black added to the yellow red. And that gives us a nice, ochreish, brownish color. And then this last one came out of a tint. So this is this centerpiece here, which is, 60% white added to this color. So I have a very saturated purple, a kind of a desaturated yellow orange, and then we have a very pale and frankly desaturated um, cyan green. So we have this one set. Now we use the same three colors, but we pick entirely different variations. So this one I picked, a shade. This is from the tone wheel, and it's this centerpiece here. So this is grayed down quite a bit. And then this one came off the tint, and this is like a 30% white added to that purple. And you see, this has a completely different feeling. This almost has like a soft jewel tone to it. And then you come over here, and then the yellow red becomes very dominant. This is a fully saturated color. And then I'm taking this color here of the cyan green, and then a very dark shade of the magenta blue. And these three, even though they're all using the same three hues, they're using tints, tones, and shades to give you different feelings. Now, interestingly enough, just as an example, if I had a opaque purple bead that was shiny, but then I had the frosted rainbow version of the exact same glass, this is probably what you would end up with. is a tint of the original saturated purple color. And I can actually show you how that does affect it, because I tend to buy like the unfrosted and then a rainbow frosted version of colors, because I kind of like to combine those two in some of my work. But these are always harmonious because, again, we're working with a triadic color, which we know is a harmonious grouping, but it doesn't matter like how dark or light they are, if we just have some nice variation. Um, so this is how you can play with your saturation, your value, and your hue. So I actually am going to show you these trays tonight, but I put these examples in here so you can see pretty closely. Oh, where's my keyboard? I'm going to try and get in here a little bit more, but I'll show you the actual ones. So you can see these 4 beads are basically the same glass. They just have different finishes on them. And because of those different finishes, they have a different value to them. So this one here, I believe, is like kind of like a gold luster, whereas this one is a frosted, kind of like a frosted luster bead. Same glass, this one just looks lighter, like what I was saying with these two here. So sometimes it's nice to have those variations because maybe you want like a softer version of that dark red. And the same thing with these blue greens. These are all pretty much the same color, they just have different finishes on them. These blue beads up here, very similar. Like this is like a silver lined version, whereas this is just a frosted transparent, and this is an opaque. But these are pretty much the same color of glass, they just have different values and saturations. And the same thing with your yellows. Most of the time your ivories are actually a yellow. They can, if you want to think about it, a very, very pale ivory is generally yellow, but sometimes it's a little peachy. You might have an orange. So that's where it gets fun to compare it to something physically to tell you where that color is. And you can kind of see, oh, you're a little bit more orange. Maybe I should put you with a different color. Or if you're having an ivory bead and you really want to use an ivory, it's not working. Maybe it's too yellow and you need something a little peachy. So that's how it helps you to learn your way around the color wheel, to know how to fix a color problem and see what is exactly going on. So let's get out just a little bit more. So getting into browns and metallics. So browns, mostly like I had said earlier, are actually desaturated or grayed down versions of oranges, reds, and yellows. So your ochres, your terracottas, your coppers, your bronzes, those, if you put them on your color wheel, you kind of start to see, oh, hey, this one is actually pretty red, even though it could be a very dark metallic brown. So if you hold it to your color wheel, you can kind of start to see, oh, what does that one look a little bit more like? And that helps you place it with the color relationship that you want. Like gold, very obviously yellow. Copper tends to be very orange, sometimes even red. Silver can be interesting because some of them lean blue. Some of them are just pure no color. They would just be your pure black and white, your gray. So it all depends on the flavor of it, and then you can decide how to use it. But remember, there's no hard and fast rule. It's a relationship. So if you hold a silver up to another color that you're using and you say, hey, this looks fantastic, maybe your silver is actually kind of bluish, but it looks really good against the other color that you've chosen. Sometimes gold can be yellow, it can be pinkish, it can be green. You can kind of figure out where it sits on that color wheel when you look at the relationship of it. So a couple more things that I've added in here to help you if you want to play with this color. This is the website for Breakthrough Color right here. She has a new course opening up in September. If you're really into color and you really want to learn how to work with it, how to understand it, how to manipulate it, I cannot recommend this course enough. It's a lot of fun. Especially if you like Paulette, if you also dabble in polymer clay, Excellent, excellent course to work with. A lot of polymer clay, they when they make these palettes of the polymer clay, they're not necessarily very pure. Um, Kato Clay makes a nice mixing set, or they used to. It's been a while since I bought any because I have such a stash. Um, but once you understand where the colors are and what, like, if you know you're working with a cyan green, then you don't want to mix too much of an orange in there, or you're just going to get like a very nasty brown, because you don't want to mix too many different colors in with each other. That's the advantage I found to working with this system. What's really fun is I had these markers on hand, and I recommend, if you do play with this system, to get these markers. It's the Staedtler Tri Plus felt pens. What's nice about this is most of the pens in this set match exactly the breakthrough color system. So you have your CMYK, you have your RGB, and then you have all of the secondary colors already there in markers. So you can actually start kind of coloring. Like I'll layer them, to mix different colors to get what I want. This is really, really fun to play with. I wish I made commission on it, but but no, I just love her system so much that I just really want to share it. Um, it's really, really a strong system to work with. So the last page is I've made these color wheels for you to work with. You're going to find like the tone version. The tone wheel is the one where you're going to look at a lot of your more muted beads, and this is where you're going to find out where they sit. Um, and these are actually pretty easy to make yourselves if you have software to play with. Start playing with that color and look at your CMYK mixes and figure out where these colors go. So that's basically it with this system. I can start showing you some samples and taking some questions, and I can roll this back to wherever you want to look. So I'm going to grab my phone and show you some of these samples. So sorry, I have to kind of look at my computer. All right, here we go. Can everybody see that pretty clearly?
Can we stop sharing the yeah, can we stop sharing that, and then we can highlight? There we go. Now we can see it a little bit better.
I'm not
Thank you.
sure if this is lit well enough. I'm afraid of blowing everything out with my lamps.
It looks great to me, but let's let other people decide. Looks really good to me.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
We're in the room here.
Okay, so basically what I'm sharing with you here, and let me see if I can point at them, are, so really these colors here are all pretty much the same. These 5 here. What's making them look different is purely the finishes and how transparent or opaque they are. So this one here is kind of a matte rainbow, and the one to the left of it is a transparent rainbow. So it is a much richer color. I'm not really seeing it from on the screen on here, but now this one over here is a color line version. So it's a little bit more raspberry toned than the other two because the inside paint color is pushing it more pink. And then this one over here is a gold luster version. So again, believe it or not, that gold luster has pushed it more into a pink tone instead of that deep red raspberry tone. And then this one, of course, is the matte version with no extra finish on it. So I don't know if it's really coming through that clear. It might show up better with the other colors.
No, it looks really good on the big screen TV. My computer is a little more muted on.
Yeah.
But
for
the
those
big
at
screen
home.
TV, but the big screen TV is amazing. It's a
I've got good
Samsung.
color on my computer, and it looks great on my computer at home.
Okay, great. So I'm going to speed up a little bit faster in there. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Somebody else is speaking. Oh, there's the dog. Hi, Charlie.
So cute.
He's the boy. So these two I kind of want to show you. This is actually in the same exact color family as all of the rest of these. This is very definitely a very, very desaturated and pale version of this magenta red color. Hi, Charlie. He's going to pace back and forth because he wants mommy's attention. And then this one here is also, again, the same color. This is a lighter value. So these beads are actually very close in color, in hue, but this one is a lighter value, and it is also very slightly grayed down. The frosting on it, as well as the fact that it's transparent, it kind of takes on color around it, so it grays it down a little bit. Whereas this one has a pearl finish to it, so again, it's kind of reflecting the colors that are around it. If I put these next to something else that's very saturated, it will actually pick up some of that color. So to Rochelle's point about the three-dimensional effect of beads, but it's also the finishes, they pick up and reflect and share color between them. So that's also something that's really important to remember when you're putting beads together. So I'm going to move over to the blue. This one might show up a little bit better. So again, these two right here, this one, oh, which way do I go? This way. So these two right here are actually the same exact color of glass. This one is I think it's copper lined. Yeah, this one's a copper lined transparent, whereas this one is a matte, very slightly rainbow frosted version. But they have a very different look to them, even though they really are the same hue. And then this third one over here is actually a muted and lighter color of the same hue. So this one's lighter, it's also a bit desaturated. But as you come around this corner, and these four here, you're going to see a much more saturated version of a blue-green color. These are edging more into blue than into green. These are a little bit more green over here. But again, you're going to see the same effect. These four are all pretty close to the same color. But again, this one is a galvanized metallic. This one is a frosted transparent. And then this one over here is a silver lined transparent. And even though, again, they are pretty much all the same color, they have a different effect. You know, this one looks very dark. This transparent one, if I put this up against a dark orange or a brown, this color will change massively because it will take all that color out. Hi, Charlie. Would you like to say hi? This goofy dog. Okay, so we get into the yellow. And this is what I was talking about with your ivory colors. So let me try and get a little more light in here. So this ivory color is actually more of an orange. This has a very peach tone to it. And then this ivory color is actually definitely more yellow. Now that might be a little hard to see on the screen, and everybody's computer screen is a little bit different. This may not be as obvious on the camera, but just as an example, you can see this one is slightly more yellow than this one is. They are pretty much the same value. They are very light in value, very high value. But that's what you want your ivories for. But maybe if I was to mix this peach one with something that would look better with a yellow, it's not going to look quite right. So that's a very small nuance to pay attention to. This is what I would consider a fully saturated yellow in the middle. This is just an opaque, shiny bead, and this is showing the richest color that you can get in the bead, and then you can see all of the desaturated variations around it. Now this one is also fairly saturated, but it's also edging into orange, and what's really making it shine is that silver line. The silver lining in it that actually makes this look even more brilliant in orange than it would without. And what I like is these two here. These are also one of my favorite neutrals, which is, I guess it's called a light amber. I've been using these for years, and this one is just a simple frosted transparent. This is a rainbow frosted transparent. But you can see this one over here has gone a little pinker in tone, and it's slightly lighter than the one without the frosting. And then the last one is just to show you how pale you can get. Now this actually looks a lot brighter on my screen than it is in person. This barely has a touch of lemony yellow to it, but it's still actually pretty saturated. That's kind of the magic with yellow, is it can get super white and still actually be pretty saturated. So that's part of where this can get a little confusing, is what do you mean by saturated? This is such a pale yellow. It is a very pale yellow, but it's very, very yellow. Whereas when you get into the ivory, these two next to each other, you can tell this one's yellow. This one is kind of, is it yellow? Is it peach? You almost need to put a peach next to it to say, oh no, that is kind of yellow. That's where desaturation makes it kind of difficult to figure out what color you're looking at. So that's why you need to compare it to something else to really get a feel for it. And then to segue into this here, these are browns. Now this top one here, now in person, this is very red. To my eye, this is a very, very red brown. So I would consider this a dark copper color. And if we were to really brighten it up and really make it more saturated, this would come out very close to red. Whereas this one, which is more of a, like a bronzy copper, this would come out orange. And then you get down here, and this is what most people would call root beer. This is like a transparent root beer bead with a rainbow finish on it. And that actually lightens up this brown a good bit. Unfortunately, I don't have the other brown variation there, but you can see you just go from these colors down this color wheel, and this is probably still fairly red in tone. Then you get into this opaque, brown. Like this would be considered like almost a chocolate brown, not quite that dark. Like chocolate browns start to edge into towards black. Whereas this one would definitely, if you resaturate it, would come out red. But the one next to it, this is definitely an orange. And the same thing with this very shiny metallic version. These two are very close in hue, but that shininess really pushes this over almost to a yellowish tone. But I want to show you something with this sample. Is I put it in here, and you can see the progression from this bright yellow to this more orangey yellow, and then you realize, oh my gosh, that is an orange. And that's where it really gets fun, figuring out your browns. Like, do I have an orange brown? Do I have a red brown? Or do I have a yellow brown? And that's where you start to play with these. Like, that's where it's really fun to have samples to see, like, hey, what color is that actually? So, now, another one that's really interesting to get into is your whites. Every one of those are considered white, but look how different they are just because of the finish. And again, as you're working with things three-dimensionally, finish really counts for a lot. How much is it going to reflect? How much is it going to absorb? And that is really key. Like when I first really started working with color in beads, I worked with a lot of saturated colors. I found that I preferred matte opaque, because matte opaque reflects and absorbs so much less of the color around it than even a shiny opaque bead would. And then the last example with the bead samples, and I don't know if that's going to come out through really well. These are your blacks. All four of those are considered black. The one all the way to the left, I don't know how clearly that's coming out. It's a little fuzzy, but it almost looks like it's a dark charcoal gray. That's a very matte bead. So that matteness has taken a black bead and pushed it down to a dark gray. And then there's a very, like a matte black, but not quite as matte as the grade one. The next one to the right is a shiny opaque. And then the last one is a metallic black. All of these are considered blacks, but they all have a different color to them. So again, this is where finish is that fourth element with beadwork that you don't really get with most color theory. So how did you guys feel about that? Did that show you anything you haven't played with before, or did that make you think of something new?
Feel free to comment.
I love the fact that on my screen, that middle, if you're looking at the browns, the middle one to the right on my screen looked very red until you put it next to the yellow beads, and then it was so obvious. That one, yeah,
Yeah.
and then it totally looked orange to me. So that one to my screen looked really, really red, and then you put it down, and it was so obvious. So you were saying, you were saying, oh, this is an orange, and I'm like, well, my screen is not really showing it. Sorry about the birds in the background; they belong to my brother. Uh, but when you put it down there, it's so obviously orange, and so you can really see the shift in color. That's really super cool.
Yeah, when it was sitting off by itself, it does. It looks very, very red. But that's again pointing out how relative color is. Color is all about who it's sitting with, and it really makes a difference. Now, if I go and I put this, well, let me put this up against the green, that just went really red again, didn't it?
It absolutely did. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, they're going crazy in the background.
So, so I have some samples of my work and some of the color that I do. And one of my favorite things to work with is split complements. So on this particular one, the main color would be those blues, and then the orange and the green would be your split complement. So I worked a lot with like purples, and then I would take them. Well, this would actually be more like a deep blue is where the with those flowers. And then, I just love that deep blue with a combination of orange and lime green. And that's a perfect split complement. But if you get a little bit closer, you'll notice in the center of my green bits, there's yellow. Well, that's the complement to the blue. And then, there's also, all of a sudden, there's like reds. So I shifted off from the orange and I put some red in there. And then I also shifted off from the blue, and now I have this magenta blue or purple in the center of the blue. So this is something that's really important is you can start with the simpler color relationships, but to really make it lively and bring it to life, start knocking on the next door neighbors, you know. And yeah, seriously. Honestly, if you show up at your neighbor's house with something yummy, they're going to come on over and it turns into a party. But that's one of my favorite things to do is I'll start with a basic color, palette of like 3 colors. And then you literally you just go back and say, hey, I've got this orange. What's a little bit more orange? Let's go to red. And that gets very exciting. Sorry if I'm going to wander off here. This is another variation on that, is this bracelet. It's that exact blue, orange, and lime green. Absolutely love this combination. And you can just see it, like, it really works well together. And what also works well is your blue is almost your black. The orange, if you squint, is like a middle gray. And then the lime green is your light color. So I've got 3 values, I've got 3 colors. It just really sings well together. And the texture works wonderfully. So this is where limiting your color actually helps strengthen the look of a piece.
Quilters use that concept quite a bit when they make quilts, even art quilts or whatever, by adding an unusual color or just a little bit makes the rest of it pop.
Totally.
Like your orange and green and blue necklace, that just that hint of red made everything else kind of pops and stuff.
Yeah, you can see it right in the necklace itself. I just have those touches of bright red.
Yeah.
It's just that little extra oomph. But
Yeah.
it's still very related.
Mhm.
And then you can get very muted. So this one is what I would call this is analogous color. So there's like these kind of yellows in the middle, there's the olive greens. And believe it or not, those are not browns. Those are dark greens at the base of those nubbins. So really it's just yellow and green with maybe just a touch of orange here and there. Very analogous. I have 3 colors that are all right next to each other. They all wear the same shorts, and they just work beautifully together. This is another one Now that one, now the interesting thing with this bracelet is not only is it analogous color, but it's also, I think the camera is showing this at a much better much more contrasting than it really is. But the values are very limited. So let's say, like, if you had a value range of 1 to 10, this is like 4, 5, and 6. So, not only are they neighbors, but they're all sitting on the same porch. And this is really calming and easy and simple to do. And so this purple one, again, very analogous, but you can see it goes from blue to pink. And then it has the purples right in between. But there's a lot of variation in there, and I played with a lot of values as well. So there's some very light values, some very middle values, and some very dark ones. And that is the fun of it, is just, with this kind of necklace here, I would basically take those focal beads. I'd start with the big one, and then I'd find the medium-sized ones, and then I would find like things like daggers and drops and round beads, and then I would find the beads to build the body with. And that's super fun to do, is to start with that focal bead and riff off of that. So that's another one. This one, now this one's another split analogous, but it's not as split as it should be. So this is actually like a cyan and a green, and what it should actually be across from is a pink, but I went to yellow. And this just made it almost sort of analogous, but not really. So you have your yellow and your lime green, and then you skip over 2 colors and you hit the cyan. And it just works beautifully. Really, Charlie? But part of the reason why this works, and this is again why breakthrough color as a system is so good, and is there really still is only 2 colors in this thing. It's yellow and cyan. And the greens are just mixtures of yellow and cyan. So even though I wandered off and didn't use your typical gamut of color, because there really is only 2 colors in here, it works. You just have yellow and blue, which make green. So that's a really fun idea to play with as well. Another great way to like come up with your color palettes is just play with watercolor. Get some basic, yellow, magenta, cyan watercolors and just start layering them and see what you come up with. So complementary, again, with breakthrough color, I don't know if it's not really showing the green as well. You can see this is pink and green, and then I have a brown crystal in the middle. But when you look up here and you look at pink and green, that brown is actually orange. It's kind of like, again, a weird sideways split complementary. I kind of wandered off. Like, that should really be kind of a deep blue or purple like that other bracelet, but I found that brown, I wandered off, and it works. And it works because it has the yellow and the magenta in it, and that is nicely complementing that green. I think this is a Mindy Mugen bead. I forget. I'm sure you guys recognize this bead. This thing is nothing but complementaries. You have your cyan and your red. You have your orange and your blue. You have the purple and the yellow. Like, this whole thing is just all the complementaries in one bead. So you can mix and match with this to your heart's desire. That's kind of why I like that one so much. Trying to think Hana made this wonderful bead here, and this is a beautiful split complement. It's a green, a real yellow, and then the petal itself, the sepal, is actually purple. So that is a perfect split complementary piece right there. And again, that's why it works so well. And then the piece next to it, it's the same thing. It's the same colors. These actually match beautifully together. I may have to redo that piece. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to show you for the samples is to what Rochelle was mentioning. So if you look at these lime green posts on here, you can see that they have orange thread inside them. And there's Charlie again. But if you go to the other end, the lime green pieces have turquoise thread in them. So if I pull away a little bit, this looks more yellow up here, and the ones on the bottom look more blue. So the color of the thread really changes how those beads look. Those are exactly the same beads, but one looks very much more yellow than the other. I'm trying to see, like, which other ones did I do that with? Yeah, that was pretty much the lime green. As you can see, this one is also chock-a-block, full of complementary colors. It's just all over the place. And this was just a really, really fun piece. This is like one of the more three-dimensional pieces that Hana was mentioning earlier. Never did make the chain for it, but it is actually a full vessel. And the whole thing is just structurally held together with beads. That's it. But yeah, if you can really see it from this direction too. If you look, these lime green ones up here look very green and bluish, and the lime green ones down here look very yellowish, but they are exactly the same bead. Okay. So
I love that. I love especially like the same bead in the two different threads. What kind of thread do you use?
I am trying to remember the brand name. Can't remember. I'm gonna go back to sharing the PDF here. Oh, for the life, Ceylon. I think it's Ceylon. Um, I'm pretty sure it's Ceylon. But I bought all the little spools. So I have all the different rainbow colors. But I pretty much like have every color that they make. Really, mostly what I use now, I tend to stay in, like the taupes and grays and things like that because I like my thread to kind of disappear more. But for the bright colors, I believe it was Ceylon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, their color
Other
range is
questions?
amazing.
Julia, I've really enjoyed your presentation. I majored in art and, selecting the colors can be a challenge. I wonder if, you've ever. I've seen that. So your final slide with the 3 wheels on it, did you ever put the Toho numbers, for example, on them? Yeah, I know that they're going to change by finish. But just pick one finish and put the Toho bead numbers on it, for example. Do you know if anybody's done that?
I think my
Honestly, I only made these color wheels for this course.
I love
get more colors.
Yeah, I've never done that personally. Um, but that's actually a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant use for this.
I wonder if AI could do it.
Well, I'm working on it actually right now in a
Yeah.
Excel spreadsheet, but yeah, with the exact color cane breakdown. So,
Love this.
so yeah, I'm working on it. So I've already finished the oranges. Now I'm on to the reds and yellows.
Wow.
So, cause I'm trying to develop some more oranges for Toho, cause they're missing oranges. At least in my opinion.
Tell her that,
She can hear you.
oh, can you hear me?
You just gotta speak loud.
All right. I think this presentation, for those of us who are not art majors, has been almost overwhelming because it gives so much information that I'm just look this and this and this, and this gives so much more detail to how you choose beads and finishes.
And she sent the PDF to us, so we'll be emailing it out to the group as well. So the whole PDF is
So thank you
Yeah.
so much for giving us too much information. No, I'm joking about that, but it really has been very informative.
I also want to say thank you. I have read several color books, but no one has ever described things the way you did. Nobody has said when you use a matte opaque, it takes less of the colors around it.
Yeah.
And the way you described it as on the porch, and it was easier for me to relate to it. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Yeah, and actually, I can only take so much credit, though I did say, yeah, they're all sitting on the porch together. Tracy, again, I can't recommend Tracy Holmes's class enough. She was the one that introduced to me, like, hey, some of these colors are best friends. Some of them are cousins, some of them are second cousins, but you still want to invite them to the party. Yeah, so again, I really can't recommend this course, especially if you have not gotten an art background. This course will teach you more than any art school ever taught me about color. Um, even though I'm super familiar with the Pantone system, I studied the Munsell system, which is what a lot of designers and artists use. And actually, I've started using the RAL system from Europe, which is really interesting because it's basically a huge saturation value kind of color system. Um, but but the way she teaches you, it's really, really adorable. I don't want to give too much of it away. I love her system. But again, if you don't have an art background, her system is going to give you so much confidence in working with color. It really is. But I think this is a good introduction. If this has whetted your appetite, just looking at these color wheels, I mean, if you get into it, the cube, I don't know if you guys can see my camera, but what's beautiful about this cube and what you can't see with the cube is if you slice this along any slice and you pop it open, all of those slices, every single square in that single slice of the cube, they're all harmonious. And you get an incredible, palette of color from each slice of this cube. I haven't taped mine together because I'm too precious about it. I was one of the lucky people that got her Kickstarter card, so I have like the really nice one. She has a free set of that you can download, and the cubes really teach you how these build up. So like I'm showing you the finished cube. She starts you with the single one that's just one color on each side, cyan, yellow, magenta, red, blue, green, and it shows you how color grows from those 6 primaries. It is really, really an incredible system. And if you do learn this, and even if you just use this, what I've given you here, which is just a taster, and really based on what she has publicly available with her stuff, it's enough to get you started, to start getting you thinking and really looking at it. And I apologize, I didn't see the name of the person that brought up the finishes. And believe it or not, Hana, that came out of our 3D animation background, where you had to study surfaces and understand how light interacts with a surface. And all of your color is light. And, so if you have a matte bead, that matteness, the reason why it's kind of like dull and sits there is because it's not really reflecting as much. It scatters the surface, so it doesn't grab everything else. Whereas the shinier beads will. And that's why the color lined beads have extended a palette so much. To your point, Rochelle, oranges are really hard. And oranges so I said lime was my neutral. Oranges are my accents, And I love having a beautiful range. I especially love the yellow orange end of it. But that red orange color, when you have it with the right combination of stuff, really pops. So any other questions?
I have a comment. I'm a textile major, so when we do dyes, we work with your tints. So this was really interesting to me and very broadening because so many people will put what they're comfortable with, and it's usually tonal. And what I found this will do is give them permission, go in and grab that accent color that makes things look different. So I really like the fact that you brought this together. I've known about it. I have not really seen it, but I'm really excited to get the PDF on it.
Oh yeah, like this, to your point, like this relates exactly to what you're talking about. You know, people will go for these like soft beiges and the deeper, you know, maybe jewel tones or whatever. But to put a bright orange in there, people are scared of that, and there's no need to be scared of it. You
Don't
know,
be scared. Don't be scared.
No, I think it would give you permission to do that.
Yeah.
and permission is a wonderful way to say that. You know, it's, hey, this is an official wheel. You can use every single color on here. You know, it's all yours. You know, you don't have to stick to these rules. As you can see, I wander off all the time. You know, like I was saying, like with that, with this crystal bracelet, this particular one here, if you look at the color wheel, you got the pink and you got the lime green in here. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to use a desaturated orange. That doesn't match any of this stuff. I just was like, hey, I'm going to wander off here. But this orange that I used is actually this color right here. So I have like a tint of pink, I have a tint of lime green, and then I have this shade of orange in that bracelet.
Yeah, color is really amazing. It's the most fun thing to play with. And that's why we have not ever enough colors, as they say, you know, everybody always wants, don't you have one more? I want one in between here and here. So that's where I do think your thread, you can actually make that in between happen. So.
Oh,
encourage
yeah.
people.
I mean, again, if you just look at the lime
Yeah.
green beads on each end, how different they look.
Yep. It
You know?
works.
Made a big difference. Thank you, Rochelle.
Yay!
Well, thank you all so much for having me here tonight. This was a real pleasure and super fun for me too. I can talk about this stuff all night. Oh, and Paulette shared some good ones.
So we can start little group chats, color chats, little groups, and that's what, you know, our Facebook private group is all about. You can post all kinds of things and message back and forth. But if you want to start and create other little fun groups, you know, we encourage you to do that.
Look at the chat. Paulette's the last one.
Oh, let me look at it. Let's see what Paulette. Wait, I gotta get to the new ones. I'm getting there, Paulette. So we've got, Paulette put a whole bunch of more authors up here. Maggie Mangio at the AIC International Color Association, colorliteracy.org. And then Jan Lowe says, thanks for a great session. So colorliteracy.org. I think that's a great, so much great info. Everybody is just having so much fun with this.
Yeah, if
You
you
just-
Google Maggie Maggio, you find a lot of information, and she's actually working with Europe, you know, France, different organizations, different projects. A lot of it also is to educate everybody, including students, younger people, to understand the color system way it should be, and also the understanding how light affects color.
Yeah, so this was another system I brought up, and I'm sure she's actually probably involved at this, the RAL color system.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, like, so this looks like a Pantone or a paint chip book. These are actually not inks. What they did is they created varnishes that they colored or pigmented to match the values, the hue, saturation, and value to create these colors. And these particular people, these books, they actually name them with standard names and color numbers. And the color numbers are actually the code. So if you look up RAL color system, this is really fascinating too. I've just gotten into this. This is ink and substrate independent. So if you, this, I think I got this on Amazon. It was like $30. this might also be a nice tool for you guys to work with in trying to, match your bead colors. And you can actually write your Toho colors on here too if you wanted to use this as a more portable version.
But that is the question here about the color codes and their numbers. Toho does do that. So everything like 5 is a red, and then 25 is the same color, only with the silver lining. And then 405 or 45 is the same red, just an opaque or opaque, whatever. So that's how Toho does work. So their numbers are exactly the same way. So the yellows are the 2s, and so they're all the same thing. So 7 and 167 and 147. So that way, if you look at Bobby Bede's names, which I help name, then if it says, cherry or whatever, it's the same color. If I said cherry over here, it's the identical glass. So that way you would know or whatever. So that's where other bead companies don't do that, but Toho does do that so that their colors are easy to follow, and then they're the same all the way across down the board of finishes.
Yeah, actually, yeah, to your point, like that's why I ended up with a lot of the same colors, but different finishes is because of the Toho color system. So I would go in and buy, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but I would buy all the same turquoise bead color, the glass color, but I would get all the different finishes.
Yep.
And that's how I ended up with these these dishes full of beads.
So,
So,
Rochelle, if you
Oh.
look at the very beginning of the colors, like you said, like whatever, like 7 is yellow or whatever, and then when it's 2-7 or 7-2.
Yep,
and
yep,
7
it's the same thing. Yeah, 27 is the silver line version of 7.
Okay, and then if
Yeah.
it's like 427, it might be yellow with silver.
Correct. 407 or 47 would be the opaque, and then the opaque rainbow is 407. So yes, they're all in that system kind of thing, at
cool.
least for the basics. And then they tangent off here and there, but
Okay, cool.
Since I'm on the camera, I emailed with Ryan. He really would like to get our registrations in 3 weeks on Monday so he can order food and such. So if you have any special needs on food, and if you can't get it to me in that time, email me and say, I'll be here these days. So then he'll kind of have a count.
this is all about the retreat, you guys. Retreat.
There's another form up on the website now that it is not over large, like somehow that happened, I don't know. But they're on there if you want to grab your registration.
Sign up for the retreat, join everybody. We're so thankful. And you can just talk about beads and colors the whole retreat if you want to. And so, and this, whoops, I forgot. Yeah, so this will also be recorded. You can watch the recording later on YouTube, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Excellent presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
Julia, it's been
Yay!
well, it was great meeting you all, and I'm so glad you enjoyed this. And thank you.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Julia, for being with
Yeah.
us. We really appreciate it. Guys, I'm gonna now embarrass the heck out of poor Julia because she's very humble and she hasn't shown us any of her paintings. So I'm gonna show you some of her lovely paintings.
Oh, right. So then if she had to shop sharing so that we can see.
Oh, and you guys
So-
have control over
There you
that.
go. There you go. Oh, that's beautiful.
Oh,
Oh, I love her.
oh,
Oh, cutie.
hamsters. I forgot about those.
Yeah, I know. Oh, that's good.
Oh,
Wow, the detail in that sunflower, that's amazing.
Yeah.
yeah, don't paint sunflowers.
Anyway, those are just a couple of my favorites, and she wasn't about to show you, so I
No.
decided I was going to do it.
Aw. Well, I'm so glad you did. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks,
Yay.
Hannah.
All right.
Oh.